You know what? My dogs will probably bark before yours. So as long as we're both okay with it, we're golden.
Actually, my son.
This is like an everyday occurrence.
Say hi.
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 She's a world champion.
How are you?
Good.
Do you know how amazing your mom is? You do? Awesome. Are you a skier? Are you on a Nordic team?
Yes.
Wow. I love to ski. That's amazing.
Have to get her
Do you
out.
like moguls or do you like just flat going fast?
Well, I pretty much like going fast and uphills.
Uphills.
Oh, right, because it's oh
Nordic.
my God,
Yes, all that stuff.
super fit. That's hard work. That's amazing. Good for you. Keep going. I'll be watching you. I'll be watching you when you win that first medal. I'll be watching.
Meanwhile, go to bed. Okay? Go. Go read your book. Love you. Good night. Bye. Can you close my door, please? Merci beaucoup. Sorry.
Cutie. Oh my God, he's adorable.
Yeah.
So I basically have like 50 minutes.
Okay,
50, because I have a client right at 1:45, just to let you know, because I
Great.
can go on and on and on, and you just shut me up when that
Nope.
happens.
That is awesome. That will keep me focused, and that's spectacular. Here, let me just get all my stuff here together because I was trying to close everything down. And
Shannon, we've got to do something together in person.
I totally agree. I would love that. That would be amazing.
We're going to. Like, I mean, there's no doubt, and hopefully it'll be here at the ranch, but I've been thinking about this since I had you on my podcast. I've had a lot of people write me and say, "Oh my God, she's just so amazing. Can you get her?" And I was like, "Yes, we're doing something together."
I will love that. I very much look forward to it. So I'm trying to pull up my notes for you here. I have other notes too, but I'm just pulling up my my quotes from here. We go. There we go. All right, I'm all set now. Yes, let's do it. I would love it anytime. I'm all yours. So you are. I'm a huge fan, and it would be a huge honor. So.
Well, I think I'm your biggest fan.
Oh
You
my
don't know
gosh.
that yet, but I think I'm your biggest fan, just so you know. So I need to thus bring you into my world. And you know Allison Levine? Do you know her as well?
Yes. Well, Allison got me into Kepler actually, and I met Allison. So let me just tell you this really fast, and we should go because I know I want to hear your story. We met climbing Mount Rainier, and I was in my last year in the Army. She was climbing Mount Rainier. She had a Duke shirt on, and I went to Duke undergrad. So we talked about Duke, and she had climbed Denali, and I had climbed Denali. Anyway, so then we stayed in touch, and I brought her. I didn't bring her, but anyway, when she was just starting, I was at the Tuck School at Dartmouth going to business school. So I said, "Hey, why don't you come out and give a talk?" She came out and gave one of her talks, and I think she was just starting out. And so then when I started speaking, I reached out to her and I literally didn't know what I was even asking. I said, "Would you connect me to your agent?" And she said, "Okay, basically, yes, but here's your homework." And she gave me 2 years of homework, and I did it. And then she connected me to Kepler. Anyway, so the whole thing, yes.
That is amazing. So she's out here in Colorado, and I said to her a long time ago, we're doing something. And when I say it, like, it's not just a dream, like I want it to come to fruition. So it'd be the three of us, and then have it be almost like a wellness day.
Oh my God.
And anyways, well, that's another conversation, but we're doing it because
yes,
I mean, we need to, not because people would need that. It's good. Like, it would be amazing.
It would be totally amazing. And then I want to bring you guys up to Washington, and we could do something at, I don't know, Sun Mountain Lodge, or go back to one of those anyway, or somewhere closer to Seattle. That's easier for people, but you would love Sun Mountain. It's very Colorado-ish, like in winter where we live. So, okay, cool.
Yes, please.
Awesome.
Yes,
great. I don't know how this all works, but we'll figure this out. So,
right. Well, the how will reveal itself. We just have to,
Yes. Will it intervene? I totally agree. And then make it happen. I agree. All right. So let's get going, because I want you to tell your story, and you don't have, I know you are in demand. So welcome, Siri, to Facing the Wind. It's so great to have you on here.
Oh, Shannon. Well, I think you know how much I love and respect you. So to be on today with you, it's a gift, it's a blessing, and I look forward to this amazing conversation ahead. Thank you.
Likewise, Siri. You are, there are so many different parts of you that I feel like I want you to share all of it, and we have a limited amount of time. But I wanted to start maybe with a quote from your first book, from Surfacing, and have you start by speaking to that, because I think it might be a good place to kind of kick things off, and then I know we can go in some different directions. But from your first book, Surfacing, from the depths of self-doubt to winning big and living fearlessly, you wrote, "If you are committed with all of your being to the pursuit of your dream, to the unearthing of your true self and potential, you will be blinded by the brilliant light that emerges when you are cracked open." That is beautiful. That is so
You
beautiful.
just gave me goosebumps because the truth in that statement, but it requires, like, we have a responsibility in
Yes.
our lives to show up fearlessly authentic. That is when we are firing on all cylinders. That is when we are truly going all in on whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish.
Yes.
And when I made a decision in my life to live that way, from that place, not listening to, I should be this, I should be that, I should do this, I should do that. When I just decided, you know what, I am going to be me. I'm going to bring every ounce of who I am into this life, and I will leave nothing behind. And suddenly, I had these dreams, these visions, but they were all becoming more realistic as I continued to do this.
Yes.
Because we as human beings, I believe, are so much more powerful than we could ever imagine. You know this.
Yes.
We are
Yes.
so much more powerful, but how can you ever know what you're truly capable of?
Right.
If you're, number one, not trying to do, like, how can you do this if you're not trying to do what you don't think you can every single day? And also, anything amazing that you want to achieve, it's going to take every ounce of you, every ounce of your heart, your soul, your spirit, everything. So the going all in is a must. And if you don't go all in, you may still succeed, and that's great. Like, congratulations, that's freaking awesome that you're succeeding, not going all in. But can you imagine what you can do if you do go all in?
Yes. Yes.
That's what I want everyone to believe in.
Your quote, though, it says, "You will be blinded by the brilliant light that emerges when you are cracked open." So there is a cracking open that is part of that. And you have so many layers of your life and aspects of you and your experience and how you've lived into those experiences that are living into being cracked open, which is the hard part, right? I mean, that is hard. So will you bring us into one of those that you might want to share, and how you push through the cracking open in order to see that light?
Yeah. And that's what's required, is the pushing through it and the not backing away. I would say the biggest moment that demonstrates this is when I was 23 years old and my father had found out that I was gay. I hadn't told him yet. And he called me on the phone, and he is in floods of tears. Like, I'm thinking that he's dying. I'm thinking he's sick. Like, I'm thinking someone we love died. And when he finally found his words, he said, "Siri, somebody told me that you were gay." He said, "I couldn't possibly have a daughter that's gay. I beg you, Siri Lindley, tell me that this isn't true." And in that moment, first of all, the story he's telling me is that even though, like, he was my hero, he was my best friend, like, I felt like he loved me more than anyone else in my life.
Right.
But in that moment, he's telling me that because of who I am, I'm not worthy of his love anymore, and I had two choices. One was to pretend that it wasn't true and lie.
Right.
But that would mean that I'm completely abandoning myself, my true self, and all of who I am. Yes. So I said to him, I said, "Dad, it's true, but I'm the same me. Like, please just love me anyway. This doesn't change who I am."
Right.
But he hung up the phone, and I didn't hear from him for the next 2 years. And after that, for the next 20 years, maybe on Christmas, I got a phone call to say Merry Christmas. But in that moment, there's a choice, because we're all told things that we don't want to hear about ourselves, that we don't fit in somewhere, or what we're doing doesn't make someone else happy.
Right.
And the story he was telling me that, who I am isn't lovable, will never succeed, will only experience pain. And I wasn't willing to live that story. Like, I wasn't willing to have that be my truth. And it's up to us. Like, we get to go first in deciding what story in life we want to live. And I decided I can't afford to live the story that he's telling me.
Yes.
So instead, I had to become that person that believed that who I am is actually, my superpower. If I can just be me, like, that's where I can find out what truly makes me come alive. And I can find out what I dream of and what I want to do. And that's how I can have deep relationships with people that will accept me and love me for who I am.
Yes.
But that process, you've just been told, like, I just lost 23 years of my father's love when he found out who I really am. So did I believe that being gay and being me was my superpower? No, not in that moment. Of course not. But I couldn't afford to believe what he was telling me.
Yes.
So in that, it became this process, this mission to find out, like, who am I and how can I learn to love and respect and appreciate all that I am? Because in the end, it doesn't really matter what other people think your worth is or whether you're worthy or not. The person that matters most is you, because you live with yourself every second of every hour of every day of every decade.
That's right.
So the mission became taking what he was telling me and deciding not to believe that and going out on this personal journey to do things that allowed me to build up a trust for myself, a belief in myself, a respect for myself. And that's when I found triathlon. And I'd been a ice hockey, field hockey, and lacrosse player, never swum before in my life, but I watched a race and I was so inspired by the fact that there were people of every age, every size, every ability level, and every single one of them just seemed to be conquering something within themselves. They were finding themselves through this challenge of the swim and the bike and the run.
I love that.
And I decided this is how this will be my vehicle through which I find me and a respect for myself. It's kind of like you climbing, Denali. It's like, I don't know if I can, but in doing this, like, I'm going to become more. I'm going to know myself more. Yes. And my first race, I came in dead last. I mean, people laughed at me because I forgot to take my helmet off on the run. And I mean, I did all these things, but I had never felt so alive in my entire life, because for the first time, I was doing this for me. Yeah. I was doing this to face all my doubts, all my fears, and find a way through them to a place where I could truly embrace and love me. Yes. And so I think the cracking open, and what I mean by that, we all know this, that it is through our greatest challenges, our deepest struggles, yes, that is when we are called to become more. Yes. That is when we are called to find within us everything that we need to not only move through it, but to rise above it on the other side. And it's that cracking open that so many of us try to avoid, and we keep ourselves safe because we don't want to have to face that kind of pain or suffering. Yet that's the invitation, that pain, that suffering, that challenge is an invitation to truly discover what you're made of. So in that, it's a way of reframing. Sorry, I just went on for like 10 hours. It's probably time to get off now. Sorry.
You're a keynote speaker, Siri, and your story is amazing. And no, it's not, thankfully, because there's so much more, but wow, that's incredible. That's really incredible. I love that idea of that pain and that suffering is an invitation, and you have the opportunity to follow that, right?
Yeah, no, and it's not fun. We all know that, but think about getting fit. You start out and you're totally unfit. And, when you start working out, like, it hurts, it's painful. You don't feel like doing it because it's really hard. But at the end, when you get fit and you're able to go climb a mountain or run a marathon or whatever it is you want to do, you look back and say, I couldn't have done this without that. Yes. So it's kind of the same philosophy.
Where do you think you learned that you could face those fears and face that that decision and follow the invitation into something that was difficult, but would open up into something that was more beautiful than you could ever have imagined. Where do you think you got that strength? And even the idea, I mean, there's so many people that just come up against a wall when they get to that place.
I think that it was me in each of these times. I was experiencing a deep level of suffering. And I'll take it back a little bit before the experience with my father, but in college, I really deeply struggled with anxiety and fear. And I had this just horrendous case of OCD where, I was one of those crazy people that would flick lights on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off 1,000 times until I could get some horrible thought out of my mind. And I felt like a crazy person because at that time, nobody ever spoke about anxiety. Nobody ever spoke about fear. And I just knew that if I didn't do something different, I would reach a point where I couldn't bear the suffering anymore. Yes. And this is actually when my greatest mentor, Tony Robbins, presented himself in my life with his first book, which is called Unlimited Power. And in it, there was just one sentence that turned everything around for me. He said, where focus goes, energy flows. Simple. Where focus goes, energy flows. And I thought, all I'm thinking about all day, every day is what's missing, what's wrong, what I don't want to have happen, what I fear, what I can't control. No wonder I'm miserable. No wonder I'm suffering. No wonder I'm like, if I continue this, I'm going to create a tragedy of my life. Yeah. And it's understanding and owning the fact that our experience of life is up to us. Like it's up to us in every given moment. Yes. What to focus on, what meaning to give things and what to do about it. So that book and that one line just got me to say, you know what, anything is better than this. Mm. And what I realize now is it's not up to fate or destiny or whatever, it's up to me. Sure. And in that, of course, it's really scary, but isn't it scarier to continue living in suffering that's only going to get worse and worse and worse when you know that it's you who holds the key?
Yes.
So I think it's that, I just didn't want to suffer anymore. Right. And I was waiting for someone else to come and lend me a hand and pull me out of my suffering, but no one was coming. It was up to me.
Right. Right. Yes, I just read this quote. I think it's Lao Tzu that was published on this website, The Well, that's putting up things now that's kind of deep thinking. And I think the quote was, if you do not change direction, you will probably end up in the direction that you are headed. And it's like, wow, yes. Yeah, right? Exactly.
And so what I realized, and with fear is actually our ally. Fear is that thing that gets us to mobilize everything we need inside of ourselves to do the best job that we can, to survive something, to achieve something. Like if we didn't have that fear, we wouldn't have that push or that, motivation to find more, access more. I mean, think about a child is choking in a restaurant. And you see the parents right away, they they feel this terror, but right away they do the right thing. They do the Heimlich and, the baby's fine. It's like that kind of swift action and effective action comes from the fear. Because It's like, okay, zoom, what do I need to do in this moment now?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, so then you find triathlon. And now we've hopped back up, I know, a little bit farther, but you have such a long story to tell, and so many, it's so rich. So you've never swum. Now you end up as a world champion. So there's quite a journey there. Take us into that. I mean, not swimming is a big deal. I grew up as a swimmer. That was my sport growing up. And swimming is a highly technical skill. Like it's just not one that most people learn as adults.
No, and oh my God. I mean, I haven't swum in 20 years because I had to swim so much in that short period of time. But basically, it comes down to I always use the story, the story that I could have told myself after that first race when I came in dead last. I couldn't swim. I could have said, you know what, this isn't for me. I don't know how to swim. I can't do a triathlon. But again, I wasn't willing to live that story because it's something I really wanted to do. So instead, I kind of decided, well, I'm one day going to be the best in the world in this sport. Ridiculous, right? And I told my mom, and she tried not to laugh. She was very supportive, but she's like, oh my God, it's ridiculous. But in doing that, in saying one day I'm going to be the best in the world, I started showing up as that person. What would she know? She would know that every single day, as long as she, makes progress, she's succeeding. She would know that she needs to laser focus, leave no stone unturned. She needs to live, eat, sleep, learning this sport and becoming proficient. She would, what actions would she take? Well, she would get a coach right off the bat, get a coach. She would read every single book and magazine on triathlon. She would surround herself with people that also do triathlon. She would move to Boulder, Colorado, the mecca of the sport. Like that version of me, and this was future me at the time, what would she do? The one that's going to be the best in the world one day, what would she do? And then I just role played that story. It was future me would do this, future me would do that. And in doing that, I became that person 8 years later that became the number one athlete in the world. But we can't, if we're telling ourselves a story that we can't, I can't swim, I can't do a triathlon, we'll never do it. Right. But if you tell yourself a story that may not feel real, the discomfort of leaning into a story that doesn't feel real yet is way less than the discomfort of living a story that's never going to take you where you want to go. So I started swimming 10K a day, like every single day. I mean, not from the beginning because I had to learn how to swim, but ultimately, I was in the pool all the time, and I would get in. The biggest thing I think that took me to the next level is I would get in, and you would have hated me, Shannon. I'll tell you why. Because how annoying is it when there's someone that's way too slow in your lane and they just get in your way? You're trying to get a good workout. Well, that was me, because I would get in a lane that was way quicker than I was. And I would just get on feet and try and stay on the feet, stay on the feet, stay on the feet as long as I could. Then I'd pull to the side. Then I get on more feet, stay on as long as I could, pull to the side. I always put myself in situations where I was the worst, the worst in any group, in any lane, in anything that I did. And in that, I think my progress was accelerated because I kept putting myself in situations where it was like, hang on, or, always.
Right. I mean, that's incredible. But to stick with that for for 8 years is a whole nother thing. Like, it's one thing to get in the pool and do that, right? Like that takes grit. But the grit that is required to sustain that through the 8 years that it took of the training to get to that high point, how did you keep yourself sustained? How did you keep yourself connected to that in a way that you could engage that fully?
Yeah. And so here's, I think the most important thing of all is I needed to redefine what success was and what failure was, because I failed so many. I mean, in those first 4 years, I just failed over and over again. I made a fool out of myself all the time. But what I told myself is success is making progress. So at least if every day I'm making some form of progress, maybe I didn't get as upset as I got yesterday when I fell flat on my face, and that's a success. Every day I would log what my progress was that I made that day. So every single day I felt successful. Now failure, or losing was learning. Like I never said failure. Oh man, I learned a big one today, or so there was never, failure was learning, success was making progress. So there was no way I could lose internally. Yes. Because every day, as long as I'm getting closer mentally, physically, emotionally, I'm making progress. Success builds upon success. So you keep showing up, you keep getting it done. But it was a showing up that mattered most. But if I had taken every failure, or embarrassment or disappointment, I would have given up long before I achieved my goals. So I knew that I had to change the definition of failing to learning, period. Because then it felt like a journey, and I can't lose on this journey, because as long as I'm learning, even if I don't make it, even if I don't become the best in the world, what I'm learning is filling me with things I'm going to need to step into whatever it is that I do next.
Yes, yes, yes. Will you take us into one of those failures? Because looking at somebody like you, it is hard sometimes for most people to believe that you've ever failed. And so, and I know that probably sounds crazy to you because you've just found this way to move through things, but share one of them and what it felt like in the moment and how it was you pulled yourself through that moment. Because sometimes in the moment is when it's really hard to get yourself out of it, right?
Ah, horrible. And this is a little bit further on. It's about 6 years in, and I had coaches. I modeled the best athletes in the world. I was doing everything, and I made it to the Olympic trials. And this was the be all end all for me. It was like, it was everything. And for 365 days before the Olympic trials, I visualized the perfect race. Just from the gun going off, diving in the water, getting in the front pack, everything leading to me crossing the line. Siri Lindley makes the Olympic team. Every single night I visualized that perfect race.
Okay.
So it's race day, and I had moved out to Australia for a year, all by myself, trying to do it alone, thinking I'll get so much stronger if I do this alone. Anyways, I get in the race, and within the first 5 minutes of the swim, I get elbowed in the face, dunked under the water, and by the time I come up, I've lost the front pack. And I hadn't visualized that. I had my perfect race. I hadn't visualized that happening. And suddenly I'm swimming as hard as I can possibly swim, but I'm just being passed and passed. Suddenly the second pack goes by me, the third pack goes by me. I get out of the swim and I get on my bike, and I have no idea who's around me because these weren't the people I saw, that I should be around. And I get on my bike, same thing. I'm pedaling as hard as I can, and I'm just going backwards. So what do? I quit. I'm at the Olympic trials, the greatest moment of my life, and I give up. And that sent me in this deep depression. I know it sounds silly now because in life, it's a small part of life, but I fell into this deep, dark depression. And I felt so ashamed. I just felt like I'd wasted everybody's time, my time, everything. And then I thought to myself, when we get in times like that, where we are just at the lowest of lows, obviously you're still here today in that moment. So, and you've been through times like that before. It's so important to go back and say, how did I get through this last time?
Yes,
and I went back to thinking about in college when I had my OCD, and I was really almost ready to just end my life because I was suffering so deeply. And I thought to myself, well, at that time, I realized that I was focusing on everything that was missing, everything I had no control over. Okay, well, let me think about this now. And I thought, wow, change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. Here I was absolutely miserable over the fact that I'd failed and quit and choked at the Olympic trials. But then I started thinking, but wait a second, what if I look at how far I've come? 6 years ago, I didn't even know how to swim. Oh my God, this is a freaking miracle that I competed at the Olympic trials. And suddenly I start thinking about, just how far I'd come. And so suddenly I went from this feeling of total shame to forgiving myself for being completely blind to how far I'd come and everything that I'd done. And how proud I was that after all the times that I fell before then, that each time I never gave up, I got back on, I dusted myself off, and I tried another way. And this pulled me out of this dark, dark place I was in. And from that point, it actually shifted everything for me as an athlete, because what I also realized is that I had suddenly at some beginning, my reason for doing this was I wanted to find a love, an appreciation, and a respect for myself.
Yes.
Somewhere along the line, it started becoming about paychecks and sponsorships and, titles and all of this. And that was not bringing out the best in me. So in that moment, and this took a few days, maybe a few weeks, I decided, you know what, every single time I step out onto the race course or on the training field, I'm going to go out and I'm going to lay everything I have inside of me out on that race course as my way of saying thank you, whatever you believe in, but thank you, God, for having blessed me with my resilience, my grit, my determination, like this relentlessness. And I felt so grateful that I wanted to show that. My way of showing it was to use it all.
Yeah.
And suddenly everything changed at that point. But I know that's a big kind of high level failure, but initial failures, just constantly being the butt of jokes in the beginning, and being laughed at because I had this dream that people thought I had no right to have because, I had no background. Like, stay in your lane, Siri. You don't know how to swim. And I think those moments were the hardest because we always, we're hurt by other people laughing at us or thinking that we're not worthy of something. And that's a cracking open too. It's saying, do I want to believe them or do I want to take a chance on me? I'm going to take a chance on me.
Yes.
And long answers, Shannon. Oh my God. I just diarrhea of the mouth. I apologize.
No, it's so good. It's so good. It's really understanding at the end of the day, right? That if you don't own your own story, then the world will give it to you. And you have to decide, do you take what someone else gives you for your life or do you decide what that's going to be for yourself, right? I mean, that's so powerful.
Absolutely. And that's brilliant. I'm so glad you said that. It's up to us. And so love yourself enough to choose your own story. Yeah. Love yourself enough to do that because that's what we're here for, I believe.
You're so right. We were just talking the other day, my husband and I, about how it feels like there are people who get pulled into whatever and they might be societal expectations. They might be their family, to your point and your story too, right? Your family's expectations, and they live whatever that is. They live those families' expectations without even asking themselves, what am I here to do? Who am I? How am I meant to contribute to this world? Right? I like that as like the end. The end is not about you can be who you are, great, but how are you meant to contribute to the world? Because you've got to be who you are to give back who you are, right?
Yes. Beautiful.
No,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, now I want to hear about the 2 years after that, because you get through this incredible low point after 6 years of total focus and dedication, and you turn things around completely.
So, yes, I decided, what am I missing? When you have a major failure, what's great about it is that you really assess like what's missing, what do I need to do differently? And I had, like I said, kind of been the lone wolf going out on my own, doing this alone. That's how I'll be my strongest. That doesn't work for me. I am someone, I love connection. I love love. Like, I needed people around me. And Tony Robbins had always said, proximity is power. Who you surround yourself with is who you'll become. Yes. So this sparked a new dream that, oh my God, I want to be coached by Brett Sutton. At the time, he was a #1 coach in the world. He coached world champions, Olympic medalists. And I thought, imagine if I surround myself with people that are all champions and he's the best in the world. So I found my way in front of him. And he had remembered me. He'd remembered me from a World Cup race where I was probably in like 30th place, but I was absolutely killing myself to come in 29th. And he'd recognize that. And he liked that. He said, that's hunger. I like that. Mm-hmm. So I didn't think he would ever take me on because I wasn't a champion yet. But he took me on. And I moved to Switzerland like 5 days later. And I got to this training camp, and you know how you often think like, I couldn't work any harder than I am. Like, this is like, I am flat out, can't work any harder, but at least I'll have, these people around me. Well, I was so wrong. I was working like this compared to what I needed to be. So I get there day one. Oh my God. Like we lived in Lausanne, Switzerland. It's the top of one of the Swiss Alps. And the goal on this day was to ride our bikes down the mountain to the big 50-meter pool, which I did. I'm like, great. I ride down the mountain. That's fine. Get in the pool. I swam double what I've ever swum before in my life. We swam actually more than double. We swam 8,000 meters on this day. And it was hard the whole entire way. I was the worst swimmer in the pool. Finish this, and I just arrived from long trip from the US. Finish the swim, walk outside. I have my bike. I look over at one of my new training partners, and I said, okay, so where does Brett pull up the van? He had this big van. Where does he pull up the van? And she laughed at me and she said, the van? She said, you ride home, silly. Like, that's ridiculous. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like 20 miles of a wall, like those kinds of hills that like scare you. Like, am I going to fall over? So I was like almost in tears, and I'll never forget because she said, go with Jane. Jane sucks. And I'm like, first of all, I was just horrified that she's saying that this girl sucks. But then I was quite happy. I'm like, oh my God, okay, like, where's Jane? I need to find Jane. So I find Jane. We start riding together. Within the first 5 minutes, Jane drops me. Jane, who apparently sucks. So what am I? Anyways, I drag my butt up this mountain. It takes me like, I don't know, 2-3 hours. And I'm done. I'm thinking, oh my God, I survived it. I'm just going to sleep the rest of the day. 5 minutes later, knock on the door, and it's my coach, Brett. And he says, we're leaving in 5 minutes. We're going running. And I was like, I didn't say this, but I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I thought maybe it's going to be 5 minutes. He's going to check my form and I'll come back to my room and go to bed. Well, we go up, we all pile in the van. He drives us down to the very bottom of the mountain again, tells us to get out, and we all get out. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what's happening? And he spins his car around and yells out the window, see you at home. 20 miles. I'd never run this far in my life. I had to run 20 miles up this wall of a mountain. I get to the top. I'm in floods of tears the whole way. It was so painful. I call my mom as first thing I do. And I say, you know what? I'm not cut out for this. Like, I can't do this. And I remember her saying, but Siri, don't you get it? He was just testing you. Like, you did it. You passed the test. So I went to bed that night thinking, yeah, you know what? I passed the test. Like, okay, that's great. Next day, like literally same exact thing. Same exact thing, just looked different. Like, 10 miles hard, like 3,400s on the track, and then a 2-hour time trial on the bike. Like, it was the most agonizing, horrific. It seemed like inhumane. And after about 7 days, I went up to him and I said, Brett, I can't do what you're asking me to do because I can't bend my arms, my legs, I'm exhausted. And he looked at me and he said, Siri, find a way. And I thought, find a way? Like, how? But it was so brilliant, you see, because every day he was giving me something that seemed ridiculous, impossible. Every day I just did the best that I could to find a way through it. Okay, just to find a way. I just showed up. I did my best, find a way. And over the weeks, I proved to myself that what seems impossible is really possible. And that is what was missing for me, is that I had these limiting beliefs that I could only push so hard, that I could only go to this level of pain. But what he put me in a position where every day I'm proving to myself that there's so much more inside of me than I could ever imagine, like we said in the beginning of this call.
Yes.
And basically, my first World Cup race after training with him, and this is, a reflection of what happens when we let go of expectations and how powerful it is, because I arrive at the race and I can barely move. And I'm thinking, you know what? I just hope that when the gun goes off, I can take that first stroke. Like that's how sore I was. And I'm not like, embellishing. So I had zero expectations because I'm just like, I'll be grateful if I can move. Gun goes off. I have my first World Cup podium ever. And what happened there is that suddenly I released all expectations, which used to weigh me down and slow me down and hold me back and disappoint me. And suddenly, when I was just grateful to, oh my God, I can move my arms. Oh my God, like I can do this. That's when I truly was able to tap into my fullest potential.
Wow.
And ultimately, through his training, it was 2 weeks before the Olympic Games, the ones that I wanted to make. 2 weeks before, they had a major World Cup race in Switzerland where I was training. And I won my first World Cup race there by 2 minutes. And the people behind me were the exact order who ended up winning gold, silver, and bronze 2 weeks later at the Olympic Games were second, third, and fourth in that race. So that was a massive victory, but we all need to do things every single day that we don't think we can.
Yes.
Because the truth is that you can do it. The truth is that you don't want to do it because it hurts, but the truth is that you have a responsibility to do it anyway. Because that's where you break through, and that's where you become more, and that's where you truly realize you want to make a contribution in this world. It's going to be breaking through those kinds of things that allows you to do that.
That's amazing. What did it feel like to podium that time in that race? I mean, that must have been.
I mean, it makes me want to cry right now because I just remember it was just this relief, but also this sense of we did it, Siri, we did it, and I hadn't felt that. That's what I was after, for all those years, 8 years, what I was after was, I think most importantly, feeling safe and feeling at home inside my own body. Yes. Trusting in myself and believing in me and backing myself. And I had done all those things. And it was like this marriage, this sense of commitment to myself that we're going to be okay. It's you and me, and we got this.
Yeah.
So
amazing.
I mean, I know that's kind of crazy. It was just a race, but it was
not just a race, not at all just a race. All that you've told us is, I know, just barely scratching the surface of all that goes into that. That's incredible. No, it really is incredible. Well, that there's so many. I mean, I know that there's more to this, but I want to go into something that is a more recent race for you, and it's actually when I think I was first. I think I had keynoted at a conference where you had keynoted that morning. So I had become much more aware of you, and I was starting to follow you. And then I think I spoke for you because you had gone into cancer treatment. And so you had a whole different type of race that you ran in the last several years. Can you share whatever it is that you think that
Oh yeah. It made perfect sense why I had taken on the things that I had.
Yeah.
Why I had chosen to take on this impossible dream. Like, it suddenly made sense to me because everything that I learned through that process is what I needed to overcome this deadly disease. And it was deadly. I mean, I was given under 10% chance of surviving, probably more like 5, because I had a genetic mutation and acute myeloid leukemia. And the thing is, I had finally reached a point in my life where I had everything that I had dreamed of, everything that I had worked so hard to get: a love for myself, the love of my life, a mission, a purpose, finally a sense of confidence, like, I can go and I can do important things in the world. I can touch lives. I can make a difference. And then this happens. And it comes down again to that story. As I hear the doctor telling me what's wrong with me and how serious it was. And my wife, I mean, she just fell apart, wailing at the top of her lungs, tears. And as I'm listening to everything and watching her, I'm thinking, they're all telling me that this is the end. And again, just like my dad, like, I'm not willing to live that story. No, not like, this isn't my time to go. I've worked so hard to get where I am. This is not my time to go. So in that moment, I declared something that, did I believe it in that moment? No, but I said, I'm going to survive and I'm going to thrive on the other side of this. Now, every part of me was devastated. Every part of me was just freaking out. But I knew that in declaring that was me saying, this is the story that I'm going to live. Do I know how I'm going to do that? No, but I'm going to become that person. And so again, it goes back to that future me, the one that's going to survive this. Number one, what meaning would she give this? And I go back to, I've always said to myself, what you're going through now is preparing you for what you asked for. Think about that. What you're going through now, whatever struggle, is preparing you for what you asked for. It's giving you the skills, it's sharpening your sword, all these things. So I thought, okay, all I want is to make a beautiful difference in this world. I found my freedom and I want to help guide others to theirs. Maybe in me finding a way through this, I will have what I need to do that. So I gave it an empowering meaning. What else would she do? The one that's going to survive, the one that's going to thrive. What actions would she take? Well, she would leave no stone unturned, like she did in the sport, do everything in her power to get herself as strong as she can be for the treatments, for all of this. She would become the master of her mindset. She would take total control over in every single moment. If she finds herself suffering, focusing on how scared she is, how sick she feels, all these things, that she will change the channel to gratitude. Knowing that it's gratitude always with me. It's gratitude is the bridge from despair to hope. Yes. Gratitude gives us energy. Gratitude gives us hope. Gratitude gets us present. And in that space, you become so much resourceful and make better decisions on what you need to do to overcome whatever challenge it is. So in every day, it was disciplining myself to show up as the future me that was going to survive this, do what she would do, believe what she believes, and it was exhausting. I mean, this getting through AML and, there were points when I was in hospital after my bone marrow transplant where I didn't know if I was still going to be around the next day. That's how sick I was. But as I look back at that now, that gave me the most incredible gift, because in those moments I thought to myself, am I happy with the life I've lived? Have I done like the most important things that I want to do in this lifetime? And there were things that, I was proud of. I lived fearlessly. That was one of them. I lived fearlessly. I did things that I didn't think that I could. The second thing that really mattered to me is that, did I love with all my heart? Like, did I tell people that I loved them? Did I show them I loved? Did I do things that I loved? And I had, but there was a lot more I wanted to do in that area. And then my last thought was, did I make a difference in this world? And I wasn't happy with the difference that I'd made. So what these moments gave me is, now I know exactly what my mission and what my purpose is. And what it is that I'm going to live fearlessly in every single moment. I'm going to say yes to things that pull me, that scare me, but I'm going to do them anyway. I'm going to love with all my heart every moment. And what matters to me is making a difference. So you can see the gifts that come out of this struggle, but it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, because it was in every single moment demanding, no matter how sick, no matter how weak I was, demanding that I show up in a way that was going to lead to me overcoming this. And it sounds forceful. It wasn't forceful though. It was me loving myself through it, because horrible, but also doing everything that I'd learned through my lifetime, focusing on what I had, what I wanted to create, what I could control. It was, taking the chemo in my arms, and instead of saying, oh my God, the poison, they're putting poison in my body, it was saying, thank you for healing me. Thank you for healing me. Thank you for healing me. And doing everything in every moment to be the master of my mindset, the master of my emotions, the master of the meaning I was giving it. And that's why I'm here today. I'm cancer-free. I'm thriving. It took work, like I'm a miracle basically, but every single one of us can be a miracle. If somebody listening here has been given a diagnosis, it's up to you. You get to decide what this is going to mean to you and what story you want to live. Is this going to be the end, or is this going to be the beginning? Is this meant for you because you will become someone more through this? And the minute you have that outcome, it's like, once you know what you're working towards, you do whatever it takes to get one step closer to that every day. But that's where the story starts with you.
That is incredibly powerful. Thank you. I mean, you are making a difference every time you wake up, Siri, and every time you speak, and every time you get on that stage and you write. And we're fortunate that you have your second book is coming out soon, right? With Tony Robbins, is that right?
Yes. This is sometimes, as I wrote this, I thought this is why I'm still here, because it's it's called Finding a Way, taking the impossible and making it possible. And it's basically a guide. And I don't just speak, I have you, the reader, do these different exercises. As I look back and think about how I found my way through my greatest challenges, how I achieved these things that seemed impossible, I looked back and I was able to uncover how I did that. So this book is that, but it's also getting you to ask the same questions, take the same steps. It's a deep dive into your own life, which ultimately will set you free. So Tony Robbins wrote the foreword. He's my greatest mentor. I can't even tell you the profound impact he's had on my life, even just by his example. But I am really, really excited. And I really hope that those of you listening will take a chance on me with this book, because I know that it will have the impact that I hope it will, and that I dreamed it to.
It's well, and your first book as well, right? So Surfacing and Find a Way. I think everybody needs to pick up both of those. You can probably pre-order Find a Way, I imagine, right?
Yes, you can, and I would love that. I would love that if you can pre-order. We actually have a contest going on, because what we're trying to do is get, if you work for an organization, and obviously there's lots of leadership, lessons in this, and creating your best energy and bringing that into what you do every single day. If somebody buys 100 copies, they get a free day here at the ranch, Believe Ranch and Rescue, with my wife and I doing equine assisted coaching, and taking part in kind of a VIP event. So buy 100 books today, send me the receipt so that I can see it, and I will be sending you your invitation for this day at the ranch.
That's amazing. We will have links to all of those in both books, and also to your website, so that people can find out how to do all of these things. But one last question, because you don't just give through who you are, which would be more than most people even dream of, but you and your wife have this ranch and do this incredible work of your heart with these animals as well. Will you speak to that a little bit? Because I really believe that we are meant to find those things that break our hearts and then get involved in changing them, get involved in making things better, right? And you're doing that.
Well, Shannon, you do that too every single day. I mean, I'm sitting here like talking up a storm, but I want you to know how much I look up to you and the incredible work that you do in this world. I rescued a horse very randomly in 2016, and this horse changed me. And she showed me a bravery and a courage I could have never thought could live inside of me. And at one point, because she'd had such a profound impact, I thought, what did I have to save her from? Like, why did I rescue her? And I saw this video of horses being slaughtered for human consumption. It was the worst thing I'd ever seen in my life. This brutal, 5 to 7 days and overstuffed trailers, some dying, some breaking legs. And literally they are dismembered alive. It's the worst thing that I've ever seen in my life. So on that day, when I saw this video, my wife and I created Believe Ranch and Rescue, rescuing horses from slaughter. We've saved since then 252 horses from slaughter. We also created a second nonprofit called Horses in Our Hands that is lobbying to actually end this, to pass a federal bill that bans this entire practice. And we've actually raised so much awareness. We've done a great job that the number of horses being slaughtered went from 60,000 to 20,000 this year, which means 40,000 horses have been saved due to people knowing that this is going on. But every weekend, I think, the most powerful thing that these horses do is I run, and I hope that you'll come one day, Shannon, equine assisted coaching programs, or it's kind of equine therapy, but I call it equine assisted coaching because I'm not a therapist. The horses are the actual therapists, but kids with autism, people with disabilities, people with addiction, depression, PTSD, we have the ultimate privilege of watching the profound and beautiful impact that these horses have on these human beings. And we get to see it every single weekend. So yes, we're saving horses, but horses are saving humans. So it's kind of come full circle. And that is our mission. It's a beautiful mission, and we won't stop until we give them the voice that they so deserve. Thank you for asking. It means everything.
Well, thank you for all of the incredible heart and love that you put into the world. And I know that you're already probably past your time here, but I so appreciate all of your stories, but mostly your heart and your spirit and your wisdom. And I know every single person that hears this podcast, life is going to be better for it. So thank you, Siri.
Well, Shannon, thank you for the amazing opportunity and for your friendship, for your belief and trust in me. And you just keep shining your light in this world because you are extraordinary. So much love.
You too, Siri.
Thank you so much, Shannon.
Thank you. Take good care.
Thank you, listeners.
I cannot wait. I can't wait to meet you in real life. So that'll happen soon.
I can't wait. Thank you, everyone, for listening. It was wonderful to meet you all, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you, Shannon.
Thanks,
You're
Siri.
amazing. Bye.